Hello, my name is George Velev. I'm a game producer working on the World of Warcraft team. I work on primarily the combat team, so things like classes, class tuning, PvP, things of that nature. For the War Within, I'm working on features like hero talents, Deep Hole Ravine Battleground, and Rated Battleground Blitz.
Hey, I'm Drew DeSousa. I'm an assistant lead encounter designer, so my focus is dungeons and raids, that sort of thing. And in the War Within, my big focus was dungeons.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm just going to start just firing off the questions at both of you. Let me know if I need to slow down or anything or repeat anything at all. So I'm going to get into a question about dungeons in general, going into the War Within. So there's I guess, a broader conversation when it comes to affixes. Always seems to be a bit negative sometimes, unless it's about removing or nerfing an affix. Why do you think that is, and how can affixes become something that could be more fun in the War Within?
The conversation around affixes, there's always going to be some tension there, right? Due to the nature of them. They create friction. They pose new challenges as you go up throughout the key levels. And that's something that, we talk a lot on the team and how we want to address that going forward. I don't have anything concrete to share with you today. Okay. That said, we're always experimenting, right? We made big changes in Dragonflight Season 2. Even in Season 4, you'll notice that we've pushed the last bucket of affixes deeper into the pool. So we're looking for the right place to put that kind of challenge and the right ways to challenge players as we go forward, right? The main goals being an opportunity to present some extra challenge as you go up in the key levels, places, for week over week change so that your dungeon experience feels different every week. And then lastly, a goal that, something we're always striving towards is an opportunity for your class to shine on some weeks and feel like, you have a really powerful part of your kit.
Are there any hero talent trees that we have not seen yet that you can give us a little preview or TLDR of? Maybe one that's exciting to the team that hasn't been presented like in any of the blue posts recently?
Yeah, so we showed a lot. There's 4 in public alpha that haven't been seen yet. So they are the Void Weaver priests. These are priests who sort of dedicated themselves to studying the origins of void magic, and they summon this really cool entropic black hole. It's really sweet. There's a Soul Harvester Warlock, and you sort of sign a pact with a demon, which empowers your spells, as long as you treat the demon right. There's Sentinel Hunter, which is a hunter that's sort of themed around drawing their power from nature's forces, and they summon these really cool Sentinel Owls. My favorite out of the 4, if I had to pick one, probably the Sun Fury Mage. It's a fire and arcane mage tree, and you summon this sick Spellfire Phoenix that casts a bunch of fire and arcane spells at your target, and you also summon these really cool Spellfire orbs around your character that are reminiscent of a certain raid boss. So yeah, those are 4 that players haven't seen but are going to be in Public Alpha 1.
Awesome. Can't wait to try those out. Kind of like the same question, but for both of you, what is your actual favorite hero talent out of all the classes out there? I've been a prop paladin for about almost 18 years, so the Templar prop pally is awesome. Just seeing the hammers raining down, it almost made me cry the first time I actually saw it and used it. Once I figured out how to use it, and it was super fun to use in the alpha dungeons. Please don't nerf it. So for both of you, what are your favorite hero talents, or ones that you probably be playing yourselves once the expansion comes out?
Oh, this one's easy for me. I love Slayer. Big fan of that. Play my arms warrior and it helps me do what I do best.
Hard for me to choose since they're picking your favorite child. It's true. I love all 39 of them equally. If I had to say one that stands out to me, I'm particularly proud of Oracle Priest. It was one of the first ones that we published with our hero talent blog, so we took a lot of big swings intentionally to get people's reactions to it. And we've since pivoted. It's no longer support oriented. It's more about concentrating the priest healing, while still sort of feeling like it's an interpretation of what we think an Oracle Priest is. So that's one I'm really proud of, in terms of how it sort of developed over time. If I had to pick one, probably Chrono Warden for Evoker. I played a lot of Evoker in Season 3 and like the idea of having a mini teleport with Warp. So probably that one for now, but changes on a daily basis.
Awesome. So there's follower dungeons that are available. Will those be available for all 8 of the War Within dungeons? And has there been any thought to possible follower raids in the future for the expansion or the World Soul Saga in general?
So we're still discussing, where follower dungeons will land. What we do know today for sure is that the Rookery dungeon will have a follower dungeon support. It is a part of the critical campaign of the War Within. So players will be able to experience that with an AI companion and play through it if that's how they want to play the dungeon.
Awesome. Now going to hero talents for a bit. Is there any concern in hero talents for like ability bloat or passive bloat? As someone like myself who uses something like, let's say, weak auras, and I have to track like already for what we have with the revamped talent tree from Dragonflight, so many passives, so many abilities. Is there any concern that if we decide to go further with the hero talents, is there going to be a mix up or a shake up there?
Yeah, I mean, this topic is something we discuss all the time, and we've heard a lot of feedback about this as well. Our process for hero talent trees is sort of start thematically and figure out what makes sense. So some trees like Sun Fury, for example, that Phoenix I mentioned, it's not a new button, it's tied to when you hit combustion. And it's sort of like a rider on that button. Other trees like Frostfire, we felt like if you want to do Frostfire Bolt properly, you need to replace Fireball and Frostbolt respectively, so it's just an override instead. So we're very cognizant of the amount of abilities that we're adding, and we're being very conscious about when we add them. In some cases, we are making class updates to sort of make room for these abilities. So for example, Mistweaver in Public Alpha 1 no longer has Essence Font. Part of that is because we wanted to give them a new active via Conduit of Celestials. So we're trying to make sure that when appropriate, we're leveraging those options, but it's really assessing it like case by case. There's no like one right answer for a hero talent tree or for a spec.
Okay. And will there be more hero talents in general just coming on later the expansion, or is this more within hero talents, just like the first iteration is going to stay with us throughout the entirety of all the seasons that we're going to get?
Right now we're just focused on making these as great as they can be for the War Within launch. Nothing to currently share about more down the line, but it's something we've talked about. So when we do share something, it's something that we've sort of taken a lot of consideration in. But as of right now, 39 for launch, and that's all we can really talk about right now.
Okay. So PvPers have like a brawl system for experimental game mode. So you have like the solo shuffle and the blitz. Is there any interest in like a Mythic Plus brawl to test experimental affixes like mid-season or in that PvE spectrum?
Not something we've discussed currently, but there's a cool idea there. That's something we talk about with the team.
Okay. Going back to hero talents, are there going to be any more like class design changes or any like class specific hero talent like revamps? Sometimes we take an entire class and we revamp the talents because something like the hero talents exists. So I don't know if there's maybe a hint you can give us, or if there's any definitive classes that are just going to go through like a good overhaul because of the hero talents that they're getting.
I mean, I can give you a definitive list of things in Public Alpha 1. So yeah, alongside hero talents, there's a good amount of changes for classes like Evoker, Druid, Warrior, Monk, Paladin. And we plan on adding more over the course of Alpha, both just from things that we've been cooking and just aren't ready to show, and based off of internal and external feedback. So yeah, there's a good amount of class changes separate from hero talent in Public Alpha 1, and definitely more down the line as we go over the course of Alpha.
Awesome. Are there any new mechanics to Mythic Plus affixes coming in this expansion, and are seasonal affixes just gone for good? It feels like the community's kind of been 50-50 on it in Dragonflight. Like, we want seasonal affixes, others kind of enjoy that it wasn't there, so what is the direction that we're going with in the War Within with that?
So we don't have seasonal affixes planned for the War Within currently. That said, that doesn't mean they're gone for good. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, right? Like, affixes are going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to iterate on them, and we're going to take community sentiment and feedback in when we make these decisions, right? As far as like new features that I'm excited about, this is a little bit in line with what we're trying in season 4. Like, there's the difficulty recalibration of like what a Mythic 0 is, right? For people that really like a mega dungeon. What we're going to try going forward is any dungeon that's part of the Mythic Plus rotation will be a part of Mythic 0 as well. So you'll actually have rotating Mythic 0s as well, and you'll have, even if you don't do Mythic Plus, you get the new set of content every season.
Awesome. And are we keeping the 4 new, 4 old dungeon system in War Within? Everyone seemed to love it for Dragonflight. And are any hints to some dungeons coming with that, if that is the case? Yeah, smiles. Yes, come on, let's go.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with how that came out as well. And I guess your early point on the seasonals, I guess that's where our stance is right now. Is like the rotation did a lot to keep each season pretty fresh. In a way where we didn't have to layer a seasonal affix over dungeons you've been playing for an entire expansion. That still doesn't mean that's gone forever or anything of that nature. As far as any spoilers or hints, I'll share one. Rimbotol's coming back. We thought that was a pretty cool setting for us going and visiting some dwarfs, taking all the lessons we've learned through Dragonflight 2 as we've done some of these revamps. Like, awesome. We want to keep the spirit of it. Like, there will be a bombing run still, if you remember that part, yep. Right? But we'll make sure we touch it up for modern pacing considerations and balance and that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Just trying to calculate the percentage of mobs on those bombing runs is going to be pretty fun. Are there any plans to take it easy on the restrictions that raid buffs impose on endgame content like Mythic Plus and raiding? You know, we've always had the bring the player, not the class conversation over the years. And just recently when I was playing the MOP remix, we had stuff like the buff scrolls. And that kind of just reminded a lot of people like, wow, these buff scrolls were really cool that anyone can actually use them. So is there any kind of, easing up on those kind of restrictions in the current War Within game or?
Not currently. At least
Okay.
nothing that we can share publicly. It's
Okay.
something we've talked about, but as of right now, no current plans, no.
Okay. This is for hero talents. This is actually from Preheat, who is a content creator who loves to play his augmentation evoker. He says, I had to ask this. With the new hero talents, we can glean that augmentation is here to stay. Does the team still consider the support role to be a success? Are there any big changes planned for the augmentation playstyle or the way the damage is allocated?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can consider augmentation a success. There's a ton of players who really enjoy the playstyle, and we're happy that we made it for players like that. In terms of new changes to the spec, we have talked about a few things internally. Nothing we're going to be share right now. Did want to mention though that we definitely heard that there's some categories of improvement that we can make in regards to logging, and we're tracking and planning on addressing those for the War Within launch.
Awesome. All right. So going to a little bit of Mythic rating in the War Within. So is the plan for rating in general and Mythic rating to kind of keep those last couple of bosses like extremely hard for like the elite of the raiders? I know it took several nerfs to get like, let's say, Tindril and Farok to a point where even like 2 to 3 day raiding guilds that would normally just get cutting edge for an entire raid took them a lot longer this last tier. So is that just like a tuning issue or just maybe a mistake? Like how is that going to be worked on going into the War Within with like those big end game bosses?
I think you hit it on the head there, right? Like we have the audience that gets there first, and we really want them to be really engaging and exciting, but we do have to consider everybody else. I don't have anything concrete as far as a plan, but this is a serious topic that we're talking about pretty often internally. That's what I can say today.
Okay. As a tank over the years, I've seen a lot of back and forth over tank threat, snap threat. We've even had like tanks in dungeons get nerfed and buffed over the years, depending on different play styles. Like, okay, we don't want tanks like kiting on the highest of high keys because there's a possibility that this is a bad play style. So what would be like the long-term solution for this? Are we just gonna continue to like buff the overall tank threat through like talents, hero talents overall? I know like, we played Mr. Kata, we had like Resolve and we had Vengeance as big boosters to our damage that we never had to really worry about like getting our threat nerfed or buffed. So I was wondering, is there like a way to solve that issue in the War Within or going forward? Is it just going to be continually just a lot of data coming in and just figuring out where to buff and nerf certain tanks and certain threat aspects of them?
That's a good question. Our philosophy really is we try to keep tank threat output and DPS power at similar levels, but it's inevitable that sometimes there are bonuses that sway in one direction or the other. We try to make sure that we can address it on the tank side first, but sometimes it requires us to come up with creative solutions for specific problems. Really, our goal is to keep tank threat high enough or give them tools they need to sort of deal with snap threat, and we're not really sort of planning on shifting or adding things like Vengeance or Resolve for the War Within currently,
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that answer. Overall, with the hero talent system, this I guess would be a question for both of you, really. What would be a win for the WoW team with the hero talents? Would an example being like everyone just using different talents frequently? Like what would be like the win with that feature, considering it's such a big feature of the War Within?
The biggest win, in my opinion, is getting people excited about what they add to their spec. If you're the type of player that really wants to sort of eke out maximum performance, or the type of player that really wants to sort of dig deep into the flavor of certain things, like, for example, Dark Ranger and Black Arrow, we just hope that there's something there for you. At the end of the day, we want to just sort of make stuff that makes people say, like, oh, I want to play that, or like, I want to make a new character that's a hunter specifically because of Sentinel, or Shaman because of Farseer. Things like that is sort of what we consider the win. Beyond that, there are some goals that we also set out for ourselves, like not adding too much complexity, having different options and different content, and maintaining the core identity and gameplay of the specs. Hitting the mark on those is also very important for us. But excitement first. People should be really excited for them.
Absolutely.
That's a win for us.
Awesome. For the entirety of Dragonflight, we had the release of our raids. We had like Heroic, Normal, Mythic all released on the same week. Is that staying in the War Within, or will that be changing up back to the, I guess, the pre-DF format of we have like 2 weeks, then we have Normal, Heroic, then we have Mythic? Like, what will be like the release raid looking like for each season?
So I can speak a little bit to release. I believe we do have an interest in having like a heroic week again, like folks refer to it as it for launch, right? There's a lot of benefit there, and like giving folks time to level up, smell the roses, do some of the max level content,
Right.
and it gives us a chance to make sure balance feels right and that we're in a good place going into our first set of raids. But only really here to talk about that War Within release for now.
Awesome. So it's possible that it could just be like that for like the beginning, and then it could just go back to the old style later on. That's just a possibility.
Potentially, yeah. But for War Within, we're currently thinking we will have a bit of lead time.
Yeah. Now, this may not be a question you two can answer, but is the patch cadence for War Within going to be the same as Dragonflight overall, with like just overall releases in general, like 3 seasons faded? We've had the last 2 expansions, or is there a possibility for some surprises at the end of the expansion?
Well, wouldn't be surprised if talked about it now, would it?
Yeah,
in regards to like seasons and cadence, right now, nothing we can sort of talk about. It's things that we talked about quite a lot, and we're still very early on public alpha. So yeah, unfortunately, can't really comment too much on content cadence or secret surprises down the line.
All right, sounds fair, very fair. Just speaking a little bit about Faded, we're about to hit up season 4, where we're going to get our Awakened season. How does the team feel about Faded going into just the War Within in general? I know a lot of your decisions are mostly based on feedback, and the Shadowlands feedback, from what I saw, was really good for Faded, which I'm assuming is why Awakened happened. But I guess for me, like as a raider, I get excited for like the gear chase, but it's always good to have like a new raid. And when we don't get that, it can feel a little sad. Whereas I guess Mythic Plus players and PvPers get like their own regular season, and they get to just ball out and have fun. So how do you guys feel about Faded in general, and then going into the War Within and their possibilities there?
So nothing necessarily for the War Within today, right? But as far as season 4 goes, it's a love letter to the Dragon Isles for us, right? Like, here's everything we've made. Go out and play it, right? And you called it out a moment ago, but like the gear chase there's a bit of a texture change up there, and for a lot of folks, it's a part of like there's a not reprogging, right, but revisiting encounters that you haven't seen in a long time and having them feel relevant. One thing that might be a little bit exciting for folks is we're actually messing with or rather we've adjusted some of the tuning in the Dawn of the Infinites mega dungeon to where it should feel a little bit closer to an actual mini raid. It's much harder than what it was in 10.1.5, and has rewards that match that as well. So hopefully there's like something there for folks to chase early on and play with that and like that format.
And going to raids, now that we're hitting up the World Soul Saga, in Mythic Raid, something I've always liked was Mythic only phases. And I know this is probably something you can't answer, but I still ask anyway. Is there a possibility with such an epic, I guess, cast of characters coming into the World Soul Saga, could we possibly be seeing some extra Mythic phases in the upcoming raids, at least in the War Within?
I think that's something we'd have to, keep close to the chest. I think our stance, remains the same. When it makes sense, we'll do it, right? But that's all I really have to share on that right now.